Okay, this is People of the State of Michigan versus Gregory Gray, docket number 20-876FH. Mr. Gray, you can hear me okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, can you confirm for me that you are in agreement with doing this sentencing with you in the jail rather than bringing you to the courtroom?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Gray, you were convicted of breaking and entering a building that is a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison. You have the right to be represented by an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Abbott, who is present. And Mr. Abbott, have you had a chance to go through the pre-sentence report with your client?
Yes, Your Honor, we discussed it this morning.
Do you have any additions, deletions, or corrections?
I think one of the offense variables is scored improperly. I think OV 16 should be 5 points instead of 1 point.
People agree with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, was that the only one then, Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Okay, so that takes the OVs up to
16.
16. Does that change the level?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so we're still at a F2 19 to 38 months, but I did correct the scoring.
Thank you.
And then did the people have any corrections to the report or any other objections to the scoring I should have asked?
None to the scoring, Your Honor, just in terms of restitution for the count that was dismissed as part of the agreement, there was a restitution for $730.72, and that's to the MSU Federal Credit Union.
You acknowledge that, Mr. Abbott?
Yes, Your Honor. We don't object.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And that was your only addition, deletion, correction?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, was there a victim who wanted to be heard?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
And do the people wish to be heard?
No, Your Honor, we'd ask the court to adopt the recommendation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then Mr. Abbott, I'll hear from you.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's the scores on the guidelines are correct, but I think there's some important things that are not addressed with the guidelines. In this case, it's the untreated mental illness. I think that's really at root of the problem here. He was in custody, participating in a reentry program, and ran out of lithium, and couldn't renew his own prescription, and his behavior deteriorated. He was asked to leave the program, and found himself out on the streets without any guidance and without any prescriptions, and a long history of mental illness. So I think, in the first place, I think it's incumbent on the state, if we're going to deprive somebody of his liberty, a schizophrenic, then it's, I don't know whose fault, maybe nobody's fault, but it's the kind of thing that can happen in a big organization. If he runs out of pills and they can't get it to him in time, and his behavior deteriorates, and he finds himself back on the street. And also, I think, Your Honor, that it doesn't take into consideration the despair that schizophrenia can place people in if they're not being treated, not getting medicated right. If you look at the facts of this case, he broke into the Tropo bar and took a bottle of liquor, and at the Tropo, they keep the pour spouts in the bottles, and there's a little white paper cup on top of them to protect him. And he walked about 3 blocks from the Tropo to where they arrested him. So there was really no effort on his part to avoid being caught. He just walked up Michigan Avenue and turned right on Shiawassee, and not Michigan, up Washington, turned right on Shiawassee, and he was about 3 or 4 blocks away maybe. And he hadn't drank the liquor, and the paper cap was still on it, and he was just walking down the sidewalk. So I think, it's a situation where a guy's doing things that you wonder whether he wanted to get caught. I mean, it's a familiar place, prison, and he's alone in a town he doesn't know anything about. So I'd ask the court to consider that, and at least think about going below the guidelines here. He is facing a parole sanction, I'm sure, in the case from Grand Rapids, and if we could just get him back into treatment if in prison, and get him on his prescriptions, that will help him significantly. I spoke with him this morning. He mentioned the fact that he thinks he's been the victim of a crime at least as many times as he has been the perpetrator of the crime. And he's been mugged and beaten and had his house burned down, and he had a long list of rotten things that have happened to him in his life. Not that that's any defense to anything, but that's just, I think, another aspect of having a mental illness. You're vulnerable. So I guess that's all I have to say, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And now, Mr. Gray, did you want to say anything?
I think that Mr. Abbott, he put it very much in true statements. It's the way I feel about my situation. I feel that my criminal history on my the things that explain all the crimes I've committed in the past. I think that the last maybe 12 years have been committed because I've been in unstable mental health frame of mind. It wasn't because I had jobs and I went out on the weekend, committed a crime. I just wasn't happy with myself, and I wasn't getting the mental psychological care that I needed. I got incarcerated from Grand Rapids, and I went to prison in Jackson, or Gus Harrison Correctional Facility. They gave me a surgical operation that I had been denied for years. And that had a large part to do with my thinking and the way I was feeling about myself. When I got sentenced, my previous attorney, I explained to him that I knew without a doubt that I wasn't in my right mind when I committed my crime to go to prison this previous time. And that was a huge part of my case. My plea bargain was I felt that, yes, I was guilty of committing crime, but I was not in my right mind when I committed the crime. And I did the 2 years for that. And then even today, I feel like I'm healed of my mental illness. But when I think about it, at the end of the day, I think it takes a little more time for me to grow into this illness. It's just not going to happen. Today I'm here, I'm sick, and then tomorrow I'm 100% well. I think it took a little bit of time for me to grow into my healing. And that's where I found myself here in Lansing, Michigan. Half healed. I mean, I claim my healers. I know without a doubt that I've been healed from mental illness, but I wasn't strong enough psychologically to really be productive and bear good fruit in my life. That's about all I can say right now, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Gray. I understand how your mental health situation can certainly play a part in all of this. And Mr. Abbott's comments are well said, but Mr. Gray was on parole for this same offense, breaking and entering a building, and it took a mere 2 months, and he's committed a new breaking and entering of a building. So while I'm sympathetic to the mental health situation, I have a strong desire personally to keep people out of the system that are purely having mental health issues. Mr. Gray presents a problem because while dealing with his mental health issues, he's repeatedly victimizing members of the community. So I am encouraged to see that, according to the pre-sentence report, there is a different level of supervision that can be given to him when he's on parole that will address his mental health issues. So I'm very hopeful that the Department of Corrections will do that. But I am requiring you, Mr. Gray, to pay $130 to the Crime Victims Fund, $68 in state costs, restitution in the amount of $1,614.52 to Vision Real Estate Investments investment, and $730.72 to Michigan State University Federal Credit Union. I'm waiving any further costs, and you are committed to the custody of the Michigan Department of Corrections for a period not less than 24 months, nor more than 120 months. There is zero credit, and that has to be served consecutively to the sentence currently being served. Mr. Gray, you have the right to file an application for leave to appeal your conviction and your sentence in this matter. You're entitled to an attorney at public expense to assist you in doing that. If you're making a request for one, you have to make it within 42 days of today's date. Do you see by any chance on the table there or near you where there's an appellate rights form or appellate rights, I think it's called? No?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, we will send it to you then to make sure that you have it. You must have it. The appeal period is 42 days and it does start running from today. So unless you have any questions, that will conclude our hearing. And Mr. Gray, you can tell them at the jail that you're all set so that they can yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been in custody since October. Do I get credit for time since October?
No, because the law is that this has to run consecutively. That means after you finish serving your sentence that you were on parole for. If I gave you credit, then it would make it run at the same time, but you don't get credit when you're on parole.
Okay.
All right, good luck, Mr. Gray.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. You don't have to do anything, Mr. Shepard. It'll unmute in 30 seconds just by you doing nothing. Unfortunately, it takes 30 seconds. There we go. This is People of the State of Michigan versus Nicholas Shepard, docket number 20-584FH. And I just realized this was set at 4. I started a little early. Mr. Shepard's been in the room waiting forever. Ms. Allen, was there a victim who was going to Zoom in?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, very good then. We'll go ahead. So, Mr. Shepard, first of all, can you just confirm for me that you are in agreement with doing the sentencing remotely rather than bringing you here to the courthouse?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You were convicted of assault with intent to do great bodily harm. That is a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison. You have the right to be represented by an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Austin, who is present. And Mr. Austin, have you had a chance to go through the pre-sentence report with your client?
Yes, I have, Your Honor. I received a copy. I sent him a copy last week along with his appellate rights form. I spoke to him today. He said, unfortunately, he had not received them yet in the mail. But I did orally review the pre-sentence report with him today on our phone consultation.
Okay, and did you have any additions, deletions, or corrections?
None to the body of the report, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, how about objections to scoring?
I have no objections.
All right, did the people have any corrections or objections?
To the scoring of the guidelines, yes, Your Honor. I spoke with Mr. Austin about this. OV12 is currently scored at 0 and should be scored at 5 for the dismissed charge against a person.
Mr. Austin, do you have any objection to that?
I do not, Your Honor. I think that's correct under the law.
Yep, so I changed that to 5. Is that the only one, Ms. Allen?
Yes, Your Honor. So that changes the total to 10, the level to a 2, and the range to 5 to 23, which is what I believe Mr. Austin and I originally believed it to be before.
Okay. So I've changed that then to, we're at a D2, range of 5 to 23. There is a Killebrew agreement to a fixed 13 months on the minimum, which I will abide by, but we still have to have correctly scored guidelines. And then I think I've already asked, but I'll ask again, is there a victim who wished to be heard, Ms. Allen?
No, Your Honor, I've spoken with her throughout this case. And part of what she had discussed with me is that she really wants the defendant to get help, actual help, more than just, we're getting him help, but actually psychological services, drug rehab. She said he's great when he's sober, but when, he's been using or any sort of those intoxicating substances, he becomes, a different person. And this has affected her very deeply for a long time. She made the comment to the pre-sentence investigator about, she wished it could be longer than a year and that she's hoping to move on and she'll feel safe while she knows that he is in custody. She was in agreement and she knows about the plea agreement and we'd ask the court to follow it. Absent any other circumstances, everything else in the pre-sentence investigation report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Austin, I'll hear from you before I go to Mr. Shepherd.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Shepherd that I have come to know during the course of representing him is certainly different than what's reflected in his criminal history and what's reflected in his pre-sentence investigation report. And I have to believe that most of that just stems from the problem that he has with drugs. That I think has probably been the primary factor that has led to most or, maybe even, all of the charges that he has picked up because he is a very different person when he is under that influence and under that grip of addiction that he struggles with. And I know he's had his ups and downs and issues with treatment and so forth. But what I can say for Mr. Shepherd is he does seem to have, in the discussions that I have had with him, a genuine desire to really turn the ship around before, it's going to get, too late to do that. And I do think he has that motivation to do that. And hopefully he can take this time that he's going to spend in the Department of Corrections to get that genuine help and the tools that he's going to need to succeed once that he is released. He's going to have to do this time, the 13 months, in addition to whatever he may do on his other sentence that he's on parole for. I would ask the court to take all of that into consideration and to abide by the Killebrew agreement and not to sentence him beyond the 13 months. Thank you.
Thank you. And now you, Mr. Shepherd, is there anything you wanted to say?
Yes, Your Honor. I just wanted to agree with everything Austin said as far as the drug addiction has played a big part on most of my misdemeanors to my felonies. And I've already took a step in the direction to CMH to get treatment as far as for my bipolar, just my anxiety, my depression. And I would like to seek a RSAT, which is a drug-based program here in MDOC. And that's pretty much it.
So there is programming there for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Because what's really telling is when Brianna says that, you're a good guy when you're not using drugs, and then you're a different person when you are. That's really telling. I believe her. To me, that's motivation enough to make a change. And you can. You're young yet, and it's not too late, and you have programming available. So I say take full advantage of it and do it with an open mind. And, you can get past this. You can change it. The power is in your hands. And who wants to be the guy, who wants to be the Nicholas Shepherd that nobody likes when you're using, when you could be the Nicholas Shepherd that everybody likes when you're not? So you'll have that opportunity, and I hope that you'll take advantage of it. You are required to pay $130 to the Crime Victims Fund, $68 in state costs. Cost to the county in the amount of $500 based on the State Court Administrative Office calculated average cost for criminal case in Ingham County. No contact with Brianna Bulmer, And you are committed to the custody of the Michigan Department of Corrections for a period not less than 13 months nor more than 120 months. 0 credit, and that sentence has to be served consecutively to the sentence that you're currently serving. Mr. Shepard, you have the right to file an application for leave to appeal your conviction and your sentence in this matter. You're entitled to an attorney at public expense to assist you in doing that. If you're making a request for one, you have to make it within 42 days of today's date. It will explain that more on the form that we'll send to you. It's called appellate rights. You should just know that the time period of 42 days starts to run from today. Do you have any questions before we go?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good luck. Then that will
Thank
end
you.
this hearing.